I never believed in ghosts before I took the night shift. That's the part people never understand. I was working as a security guard for a logistics warehouse on the outskirts of Manchester. The company handled late night shipments coming in from different parts of Europe, Germany, France, sometimes even Eastern Europe. The pay was decent, the hours were quiet, and most nights I was completely alone. My shift started at 11 o'clock p.m. By midnight, the entire place felt abandoned. Long corridors of metal shelves, dim yellow lights, and the constant hum of refrigerators storing medical supplies. The kind of sound that drills into your head if you listen too long. On my first night, the supervisor warned me about one thing. If you hear footsteps, he said, don't assume it's a thief. Just check the cameras first. That should have been my first red flag. Around 2:17 a.m., I heard it. Slow footsteps echoing from the loading bay. Too heavy to be a rat. Too steady to be pipe settling. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Still, the footsteps continued closer now. I picked up my flashlight and radio, telling myself it was stress. That night shifts mess with your head. But as I walked toward the loading bay, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The footsteps were perfectly matching mine. The loading bay was empty. No trucks. No workers, just cold air and shadows stretching across the concrete floor. I stood still. The footsteps stopped. My radio crackled with static, even though no one was speaking. I raised the flashlight and slowly scanned the area. Everything looked normal to normal. Back in the control room, replayed the camera footage from earlier. At 2:16 a.m., clearly saw myself walking down the corridor. At 2:17, the sound of footsteps began, but there was a problem. The audio picked up two sets of footsteps, while the video showed only one person. Me. I zoomed in, frame by frame, heart pounding. For half a second, just one frame, there was a dark shape behind me. Tall, thin, no facial features, just a distortion in the air, like heat above asphalt. I shut the footage off. The rest of the night passed without incident. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching me. Not threatening, curious. When my shift ended at 6 o'clock a.m., I stepped outside into the cold morning fog. That's when I noticed muddy footprints near the entrance. They weren't mine. They were barefoot, and they stopped right at the door like whatever made them wasn't allowed to leave. At least, that's what I believed at the time. A week later, a sealed container arrived from Eastern Europe. No company name, no sender address. Just a warning label that read, "Do not open after dark." Naturally, it was scheduled to be stored overnight. The moment the container entered the warehouse, the atmosphere changed. The lights flickered, the humming sound deepened, almost like a low growl. My head started to ache. Around 3 o'clock a.m., the motion sensor near the container triggered. I watched the camera feed closely. The container hadn't moved, but the shadow beneath it had. It stretched outward, crawling along the floor like something alive. I told myself it was a lighting issue. Then I heard knocking, not loud, slow, intentional, from inside the container. I radioed my supervisor. No response. The knocking followed a pattern. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again. Over and over. I backed away, flashlight shaking in my hand. The knocking stopped, and then a voice whispered my name. Not shouted, not spoken, whispered. The voice sounded exactly like mine. The next night, an older security guard from the day shift pulled me aside. He was Romanian, thick accent, eyes that looked permanently tired. "You're on nights now, yes?" he asked. I nodded. He lowered his voice. "Some shipments carry more than cargo. In Europe, we have rules about night work. Things that move when humans sleep." I laughed nervously, but he didn't smile. "If something copies you," he continued, "don't talk to it, don't answer, and never follow it." That night, the warehouse felt tighter, like the walls were closing in. Around 1:40 a.m., I saw someone on the far end of the corridor. It was me. Same uniform, same posture, same walk. But it was moving wrong, slightly delayed, like a reflection struggling to keep up. I turned away. I remembered the warning. Behind me, I heard my own voice. "Why are you running?" I didn't run. I locked myself in the control room until sunrise. After that night, things escalated quickly. The thing, whatever it was, started appearing closer. First in reflections, then in camera blind spots. Always copying me, always learning. It began sitting where I usually sat during breaks, standing where I stood, even tapping the same nervous rhythm I used on the desk. One night, I found a note on my chair, written in my handwriting. "I can do this better." I tried to quit. The company claimed I had signed a 6-month contract. Leaving early would cost me more money than I had. Sleep became impossible. Even at home, I felt watched. Mirrors started to feel wrong, delayed. On my final night, the container from Eastern Europe was gone. No record of it leaving. At 2:17 a.m., the same time it first appeared, the warehouse lights shut off completely. Emergency lights flickered on, and I wasn't alone anymore. It stood in front of me, fully formed. Now, my face, my body, but its eyes were wrong, too dark, too empty. "You're tired," it said gently. Let me finish. I backed away, my radio dead, my phone useless. "I was made for nights," it continued. "You weren't." The emergency doors slammed shut. The last thing I remember is the sound of footsteps. Only one set this time, walking away. I woke up outside the warehouse as the sun rose. No uniform, no ID, no phone. When I went back later that day, security stopped me. They didn't recognize me, but inside, through the glass, I saw him. Me, working the desk. Calm. Perfect. The supervisor smiled at him like nothing was wrong. I checked online records. My employment history was gone. My address didn't exist. It had taken my place. I'm writing this from a different country now, somewhere in Europe where night shifts are common and questions are rare. Here's the truth no one tells you. Some night shifts aren't understaffed. They're vacancies. If you hear footsteps matching yours, if something starts copying you, if the night feels like it's learning, leave. Because once it learns everything about you, it doesn't need you anymore. And if you're listening to this story during a night shift right now, check the cameras. Make sure you're the only one there.